We were at a dinner party. That's when the first crack appeared. Not the kind where someone spills wine or tells an off-color joke and people laugh too hard. No, this was the kind that happens in a silence you don't notice until it's too late. Our friend Marcus was turning 60, and his wife rented out this overpriced rooftop restaurant downtown. Strings of lights, rooftop bar, laughter too forced, people pretending they were younger than they felt. The kind of place where the servers act like they're doing you a favor just by handing you a menu. My wife sat across the table from me, beside a guy I didn't recognize. He looked like the kind of man who pretends to be humble about his car collection. Mid-40s, tan like he'd never worked a real job in his life, wearing one of those dress shirts that cost more than our electric bill. They were talking too close, and I mean too close, like he was whispering the secret recipe to eternal youth into her ear, and she was just delighted. First, I let it go. It's a party. People mingle. I watched. I listened. They laughed a lot. Her hand brushed his forearm 3 times. Yes, I counted. On the third, I excused myself and went to the bar. Didn't want to cause a scene. Not yet. I came back. They were gone. Now, here's where it started getting weird. I asked around. Our hostess had seen them go toward the stairwell. Not the elevator. The stairwell. I followed, already feeling that cold coil twist up my spine. I found them outside, by the loading dock. Not even trying to hide. Not kissing, not groping, not caught in the act. But talking. Intensely. Too intensely. And she wasn't surprised to see me. She didn't flinch. Didn't step away from him. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Oh, there you are." Not "Hi, honey." Not "What are you doing here?" Just that flat, unconcerned, "Oh, there you are." I asked who he was. She didn't answer. He smiled like a man who's been in this situation before and knows the ending already. She looked at him, then at me and said, "We were just talking. Why are you following me?" Now let me pause here. You have to understand the way that hits. 30 years. 30 years of building a life, paying off a mortgage, losing parents, raising a son together, and now she's standing outside a rooftop restaurant with a stranger, acting like I'm the one who's behaving irrationally. I told her we were leaving. She said she'd take an Uber, that I didn't need to monitor her every move. I told her again, more firmly. She laughed. Then she dropped a bomb. "Don't embarrass yourself in front of someone who actually makes me feel alive." I froze. My ears were ringing. My hands weren't shaking yet, just ringing silence. He just stood there, like a statue. This smug little smile, like this wasn't his first husband showdown. I looked him in the eye. He didn't blink. I told her to walk away with me. She said no. She said, "I'll be up in a few. Go home if you want. I'm not a prisoner." I didn't say another word. I didn't cause a scene. I turned, walked back through the dining area. People asked questions. I smiled, nodded, told them Amanda wasn't feeling well, needed a moment. Lies came easily. You learn that in long marriages, the quiet performance. I drove home alone. I sat in the car outside our house for 2 hours. She didn't come back until 3:17 a.m. I watched the clock. When she walked through the door, she didn't apologize. Didn't explain. She kicked off her heels and said, "Don't look at me like that. You knew we were broken long before tonight." Then she went to bed. I sat there on the couch, in silence. Just me, the lamp, and the sound of the fridge humming. That was the beginning. And somehow it wasn't even close to the worst of it. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of her in the kitchen. Like nothing happened. Eggs, toast, that damn kettle whining for her attention. She was humming. Not a melody I recognized, just a casual, indifferent hum, like someone enjoying a lazy Sunday morning. Not the aftermath of detonating a 3-decade-long marriage. I didn't speak right away. I watched from the hallway, standing just out of her peripheral. She wore a robe. Her hair was damp. She always hated showering late. Said it made her feel off rhythm. Apparently, new habits come quick when you don't care anymore. I stepped in. "Who was he?" I asked. Her hand didn't even flinch from the teapot. She poured, stirred honey into it, turned and said, "Don't do this. Not before breakfast." That's when I knew it wasn't a one-night thing. I asked again. She sighed. Not defensive. Not guilty. Just irritated. Like I was the annoying one in this situation. His name is Tyler. We met at the tennis club. And don't act like I'm the villain here. We haven't been us in years. I've never played tennis in my life. She joined that club 2 summers ago. Said it was to stay active. Said she liked the women's leagues, the wine mixers, the community. Turns out the community included a man named Tyler who apparently made her feel alive. I asked if she had slept with him. Her eyes narrowed. Why does it matter? It's not like we've touched each other in forever. I did something I never thought I would do. I laughed, just out loud. One of those bitter, confused, soul-splitting laughs that makes you sound like you've lost your mind. Because what else do you do when someone detonates reality in your face and expects you to behave like it's weather? She didn't flinch. She sat down, calmly buttered her toast and said, "You should really think about your part in this." My part. As if me coming home every night, paying bills, burying both my parents while holding her hand, dragging our marriage through financial stress and her go-doffel anxiety spirals. That was the prelude to her finding someone refreshing. I told her I wanted the truth. All of it. Everything. No games. She looked at me like she was already done with the conversation before it began. Then she dropped it. Like a bored confession in a therapy group she didn't want to be part of. We've been talking for about 8 months. Started at the club, then lunch, then drinks. Then weekends when you thought I was at Susan's. And yes, we got physical. I don't feel bad about it. I felt nothing with you for years. She said it with a kind of surgical precision that made me question if she'd rehearsed it. Probably had. I didn't speak. Couldn't. My mouth was open but no sound came out. She stood, placed her plate in the sink and said, "I have a session with my trainer. You can sulk if you want. But I'm not doing this guilt game." Then she left. Like she hadn't just cracked our life in half and shoved the pieces in my face. I sat at the table for an hour. Couldn't even cry. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe without it hurting somewhere between my ribs. You think you know someone. You think years mean something. But time doesn't protect you from betrayal. Sometimes it just blinds you longer. And in that moment, I realized she wasn't just cheating with Tyler. She'd been cheating with the idea of leaving me for a long, long time. The first person I told was my brother Nate. It wasn't planned. He called that afternoon, asking if I wanted to come help him fix a leaky pipe in his garage. We do that. Find excuses to see each other without admitting we just need the company. I said yes, drove over in silence, and sat in his driveway for 10 minutes before walking in. The smell of motor oil and dust and that faint whiff of old cigars hit me before the door fully opened. He was already under the sink, swearing at a wrench. I stood there like a statue. "You all right?" he asked, without looking up. I didn't know how to say it. How do you put 30 years into a sentence? "She's cheating on me." He didn't say anything right away, just kept twisting the wrench. Then he stopped, pulled his head out from under the sink, looked at me with those wide, dark eyes of his and said, "You sure?" "She told me. Last night." He wiped his hands on an old dish towel. "Jesus." I told him everything. About the party, the stairwell, the conversation in the kitchen, even the name, Tyler. Every word tasted like rust coming out of my mouth. He listened. Nate's good at that. Let me get it all out, didn't interrupt once. But when I finished, he leaned back against the washing machine, crossed his arms, and said something I didn't expect. "All right, so what now?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what are you gonna do? You staying? Leaving? Confronting him?" "I don't know." He shook his head. "Then figure it out. Because if she sees you floundering, she'll make all the decisions for you." That hit me like a slap. Because I was floundering. Standing in the middle of my own life, watching someone else rewrite the script while I stood there holding the pen like an idiot. That night, I didn't go home right away. I parked 2 blocks away and just watched the house. Lights were on. Her SUV was in the driveway. At one point, I saw the shadow of someone moving across our bedroom window. Not her. Broader shoulders. I nearly opened the door. But I didn't. Instead, I drove to the liquor store, bought a bottle of something expensive and pointless, and sat on the back porch of Nate's place. The stars were out. They don't fix anything, but at least they don't lie. I slept on his couch. When I got home the next morning, she was already dressed. Same robe, coffee in hand, looking rested, like betrayal agreed with her. "You didn't come home." she said flatly. I know. She took a sip, looked me in the eye and said, we should talk about separating. No emotion. No hesitation. Like she'd already packed half the story into her suitcase. I asked if she'd spoken to a lawyer. No, but I will. Then she paused, and what she said next nearly knocked the wind out of me. I told Tyler I might move in with him, like it was a weather update, like it was casual news, like it wasn't a knife thrown across the kitchen table straight into my chest. You don't understand. This wasn't just about another man. This wasn't even about cheating. This was war, and she had already moved her troops into position. She didn't care about decency. She didn't care about our home, about our son, about the years, about me. She wanted out, and she didn't want to crawl. She wanted to sprint, preferably into someone else's bed. And I realized then, in that exact moment, she was never going to be sorry that I didn't go to work that day. Couldn't. I walked. No destination, just pavement. Past the old high school, past the 7-Eleven we used to stop at after Sunday drives, past the bookstore where I once surprised her with a first edition she cried over. I walked until my legs gave out and my throat burned from the cold morning air. I needed space, air, clarity, any of it. I got none. I sat on a bus bench, next to a kid vaping and blasting music through his headphones like the world didn't exist. And I thought, what if I just didn't go back? But I did. I always do. When I stepped inside the house that used to be ours, she was in the dining room, on her laptop. Not packing, not crying, just typing. Her face as calm as someone ordering shoes online. She looked up. We need to talk about splitting the accounts. No, how are you? No, do you want to sit? Just a cold business transaction of a marriage being carved up like an estate. I asked her one question. Just one. I don't know why it came out or what made me care in that moment. Did you ever plan to tell me? Or was I just going to keep being the idiot you came home to while you snuck out behind my back? She clicked her mouse. Didn't look at me when she said it. I figured you'd find out eventually. I just hoped it would happen after I had somewhere to go. You want to talk about pain? That's it. Right there. That line. That sentence. She wasn't sorry she did it. She was just sorry the timing hadn't worked better for her. I asked her if she loved him. She finally looked up. I don't know yet, but I know I don't love you. She didn't blink when she said it. I stood there, frozen, not angry, not even sad, just hollowed out, like someone reached into my chest and scooped out the center. Then something happened that flipped the whole goddamn table. The front door opened. Our son, Adam, 27, grad school dropout turned freelance graphic designer, walked in holding 2 grocery bags. He had no idea what was going on. He'd been staying at his girlfriend's place for the last few weeks. He looked at me, then at her. Everything okay? She didn't speak. I did. Your mother's moving in with someone else. Silence. He blinked. Slowly. His mouth opened. Closed. What? She's been cheating. She wants out. She's already told him she might move in. He turned to her. Is this a joke? She didn't deny it. Instead, she stood up, picked up her laptop, and walked into the other room like we were 2 strangers who'd raised a child together out of convenience. Adam turned back to me, completely white in the face. She cheated on you? Yes. With who? Some guy from her tennis club. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there holding those plastic grocery bags full of eggs and milk and a frozen pizza like if he didn't put them down. None of this would be real. And then he said something I'll never forget. She told me you were losing it, that you were paranoid. She made it sound like you were the problem. That's when it all clicked. She'd been laying the groundwork, planting little seeds, whispering stories to our own son, subtly rewriting history so that when the truth came out, it would already be twisted. She was building her exit like an architect, and I was just the fool who didn't notice the blueprints taped to the walls. Adam put the bags on the floor. He didn't say anything to her, didn't even look at her. He walked past me, out the back door, and disappeared down the alley. And there I was again, alone, in my own house, with a woman who'd stopped being my wife long before she ever said it out loud. The next 48 hours felt like a surreal hostage situation, except the hostage was me, and the demands kept shifting. She didn't cry, not once, didn't argue, didn't lash out. She moved through the house like a guest waiting for her Uber. She made calls behind closed doors, tiptoed around the kitchen with her Bluetooth in, whispering half conversations I could only catch pieces of. Yes, I told him, and no, he's not going to make trouble. And the one that made my blood freeze. He's calmer than I expected. That line. That line told me everything about how she had imagined me. Raging, violent, begging, broken. Maybe she wanted that. Maybe she planned for it. Some kind of justification, some twisted satisfaction. But I wasn't giving her that. I was too tired. She started packing. Quietly, methodically. Drawers emptied. Jewelry box gone. Her half of the closet thinned out like a tree dropping its leaves. I didn't stop her. I watched. It wasn't until she started removing things from my office. Little things she claimed over the years. A photo of her and Adam at his graduation. A vase she bought with her own money. That I finally said something. You don't get to take the past with you. She didn't even turn around. Just kept wrapping the vase in newspaper. It's a vase, Michael. No, it's a grave marker. That made her pause. She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in days, and I saw something flicker. Not regret. Not sadness. Annoyance. You really think you're the only one who feels betrayed? She asked. I laughed. Couldn't help it. I didn't sneak out of our marriage like a coward. Her voice dropped an octave. Cold. Precise. You ignored me for years. Every day I was dying in this house. You want to be the victim, fine. But don't pretend you were ever really present. And then, out of nowhere, she said, I met Tyler the same month your mother died. You barely noticed I was crying in the shower every night. That stunned me. I had spent those weeks buried in grief, trying to handle funeral arrangements, cleaning out her house, balancing work, bills, Adam's sudden layoff. I was sleep-deprived and emotionally shattered. And she was what? Looking for someone who could take her to lunch and tell her she looked pretty? I said nothing. What could I say? That evening, Adam came back. He didn't speak to her. Didn't look at her. He walked into my study and asked if I wanted to go for a drive. We drove nowhere in particular. Ended up parked behind the middle school where he used to ride his bike in circles, pretending he was a race car driver. He sat in silence for a while, then said, I don't know who she is anymore. I nodded. Me neither. Then he said something brutal. She told me last year she wished you'd just snap out of it, that you were stuck in some grief bubble. I didn't think much of it at the time. But now it just sounds ugly. It was ugly. All of it. The way she rewrote our history. The way she needed me to be the villain so her betrayal could feel like liberation. The way she weaponized my silence and turned it into neglect. I told Adam I didn't expect him to choose sides. He looked at me like I just insulted him. She cheated on you, Dad. Lied to both of us. Used us. You raised me. You never disappeared. You were there when I wrecked my first car. You were there when I dropped out of college. She doesn't get to erase that. I didn't cry. I should have. But I just sat there, nodding, feeling something shift. I wasn't alone anymore. And I realized that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the only one she underestimated. 3 days later, I found Tyler. No, I didn't stalk him. I didn't follow her. I didn't snoop through her phone. I didn't have to. She left her tennis club schedule out on the counter. Sloppy. It had a scribbled note on the back. Dinner at T's, 7 p.m. Bring the bottle he likes. That's all I needed. I looked him up. Tyler Whitmore, owner of a boutique landscaping business. A few fake 5-star reviews, a smug headshot on his website, a fleet of trucks with his initials on the side in gold lettering. He thought he was charming. You could tell just by his branding. I didn't want to scream at him. I didn't even want to punch him. What I wanted, what I needed, was to look this man in the eyes and see what my wife had traded me for. I drove to his business. Walked right into his office during posted hours. The receptionist blinked. Asked if I had an appointment. I'm Amanda's husband. That made her nervous. She stood up, mumbled something, went to the back. A moment later, he appeared. Tyler. And let me tell you something, he was exactly what I expected. Fit, tan, fake smile, button-down shirt 2 sizes too tight. The kind of guy who wears cologne to mow a lawn. Michael, right? He said, like we were acquaintances. I didn't sit. I just have one question, I said. When did it start? He knew what I meant, and he didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He didn't even hesitate. August. We met at a fundraiser. It just happened. Did you know she was married? Of course. Did it bother you? He smiled, like he was proud of himself. She told me the marriage was dead. I just helped her see it clearly. That's when I realized. He thought he'd rescued her. I leaned in, close enough for him to lose that grin. You didn't rescue her. You just gave her a stage to perform on. Don't make the mistake of thinking she won't do to you what she did to me. His smile faltered. A crack. She's a grown woman, he said. She's a liar, I corrected. And now, you're the one she's rehearsing her next story with. I turned to leave, but then I paused at the door. She's going to burn your life the moment it doesn't thrill her anymore. Hope your ego can survive that. I left without waiting for a response. On the way home, I felt something strange. Relief. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Just clarity. He wasn't better than me. He wasn't special. He was just new. He was the next chapter in her never-ending novel of reinvention. When I got home, she was packing her makeup drawer. She didn't ask where I'd been. I didn't tell her. Instead, I handed her a folder. "What's this?" she asked. "My lawyer's info. I filed this morning." For the first time in weeks, I saw her face flicker. "You filed?" "Yes. But we haven't. I'm done talking. I'm done playing catch-up to the fantasy you built in your head. You want Tyler? Go. Run to him. I'll be here cleaning up the pieces of the life you trashed." She didn't say anything. Didn't rage. Didn't cry. Just stood there, holding that folder, like she hadn't thought I'd actually do anything. She left 2 days later. Quietly. No dramatic goodbyes. Just an Uber and 2 suitcases. The house felt silent in a way I hadn't known in years. But it wasn't empty. It was mine again. And for the first time since the betrayal, since the party, the confrontation, the lies, I slept through the night. She came back. Not to apologize. Not for closure. She came back because she forgot something. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I'd just gotten off the phone with the bank, changing over the last joint account, and was halfway through boxing up the junk drawer when I heard the key turn in the lock. She still had one. I hadn't gotten around to changing them yet. That's on me. I turned the corner and there she was, standing in the foyer like a woman who still belonged here. Casual. Sunglasses on her head, keys dangling from her fingers, like she was just stopping in after yoga. "Forgot my necklace," she said. I stared. "You couldn't call first?" I didn't think I had to. That tone. Like I was the unreasonable one. Like she was still entitled to entry, to familiarity, to me. My patience snapped like a dry twig. "This isn't your house anymore." She raised an eyebrow. "Michael, don't be dramatic. You walked out. You don't get to drift in and out like this is a hotel lobby." She rolled her eyes, stepped past me, and made a beeline for the bedroom. I followed. I didn't trust her alone in that space, not anymore. She went straight to her old nightstand and opened the top drawer. She was stalling. I could see it. The necklace was in the jewelry box she'd already taken. She wasn't here for that. "What do you really want?" I asked. She didn't turn around. "Tyler and I had our first fight." I exhaled. Loud. "And you thought I'd care?" She turned, arms crossed, leaning against the wall like she was waiting for a reaction. "He got weird about me staying over too much. Said we were moving too fast." I bit back a laugh. "And that's my problem, how?" "I'm just saying, things aren't as simple as I thought they'd be." There it was. The seed. She was testing the ground to see if I'd let her plant it. She wanted an out. Not from him, no, not yet. But she wanted a safety net. Something soft to land on if her new fantasy stopped purring. "Do you miss me?" she asked. That question. That sick, manipulative, double-edged question. She wasn't asking for my heart. She was asking if the door was still open. I stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough. "I miss the woman you pretended to be." She blinked. That one landed. I continued. "The woman who used to cry at movie trailers. Who spent Sundays baking banana bread for no reason. Who used to leave notes in my briefcase. I miss her. But you killed that woman. Buried her somewhere between your wine mixers and your lies." She looked like she wanted to speak, but the words didn't come. Her mouth twitched. Maybe she was trying to summon tears. Maybe she thought I'd break. Maybe she thought she still had power here. I walked to the front door, opened it, and stood aside. "You can leave now." She stood there for a beat too long. I saw the flicker of panic behind her eyes. She wasn't used to not being in control. She picked up her purse, walked out slowly, and paused in the doorway. "You're making a mistake." I didn't flinch. "No. I made the mistake 30 years ago. I'm just correcting it now." And then I closed the door. Changed the locks the next morning. That was the last time she stepped foot in this house. But it wouldn't be the last time she tried to reach in from the outside. 3 days after she walked out for good, she emailed me. Not a phone call. Not a text. An email. Like a client checking in about a meeting time. Subject line: "Just some thoughts." I opened it against my better judgment. It started with, "I've been reflecting a lot lately," which we both know is code for, "I don't like how the consequences feel." She wrote about her confusion. How things with Tyler moved too fast. How the last few weeks made her realize how complicated emotions can be. She called what she did a collapse. She said she was drowning in guilt, but didn't know how to say it sooner. Said she didn't want to be the villain in our story. Let me tell you something about villains. They never think they're villains until the audience starts booing. She wanted to meet for coffee. Neutral ground. To talk, really talk. She signed it Amanda. Not love Amanda. Like we were casual acquaintances catching up after a decade. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my lawyer. Because it wasn't just about the betrayal anymore. It was about the cleanup. The accounts. The property. And more than anything, Adam. She'd been trying to contact him too. Messages, voicemails. He'd blocked her. Told me he didn't want to see her until she admitted what she'd done, without trying to code it in narratives. His word. Narratives. But the real punch came when she called my sister. Emily rang me up the next evening. Said Amanda had stopped by her office. Just walked in unannounced. Wanted to explain her side of the story. She looked frantic, Emily said. Like someone trying to sell a lie she doesn't believe in anymore. She went on to say Amanda blamed me for being cold. For shutting down emotionally after your mom died. For creating a house with no warmth. Emily asked her one question. "And so you slept with a guy from your tennis club?" Silence. Amanda left 5 minutes later. I could feel her trying to rebrand the whole thing. Not as betrayal, but as awakening. A story she could tell her friends at brunch without being cast out of the tribe. Meanwhile, I was rewriting my own story. With lawyers, with locks, with lines she couldn't cross anymore. And then came the real twist. I was sitting in the garage, sorting through some old boxes of Adam stuff to clear the space, when I found something I hadn't seen in over 20 years. A sealed envelope with Amanda's handwriting on the front. My name. No date. I opened it. It was a letter, long handwritten, from around 2003. In it, she talked about feeling unseen, small. Just a mother and not a woman. She said she fantasized about disappearing. About waking up somewhere else. In a life where no one expected anything from her. It wasn't written to me. It was written at me. A journal entry disguised as a confession she never sent. She'd been aching to leave long before Tyler. She just didn't have the courage or the attention span to do it until it was exciting. I sat in that garage for an hour with that letter in my lap. Not crying. Not angry. Just disappointed. Not in her. In myself. For not seeing how long she'd been rehearsing her exit. For mistaking comfort for connection. For thinking loyalty would save what she never intended to keep. I didn't tell her I found the letter. Some things don't deserve answers. 2 weeks later, she sent another email. This one was shorter. Subject line: Adam. No greeting. No signature. Just one line. Do you think he'll ever speak to me again? That's when I knew it was starting to sink in. The shine of her new life with Tyler had faded. The drama, the secrecy, the adrenaline, burned off like morning fog. Now came the cleanup. The part where she realized that not everyone she left behind would just stand there waiting with open arms. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because it wasn't my place. She could reach out to Adam directly, but she wouldn't. Because she didn't want a real response. She wanted reassurance. And I was done being her emotional concierge. But I did tell Adam she asked. He didn't even look up from his laptop. Just said, she made her bed. Let her lie in it. Still, I knew the silence was wearing on her. A few days later, my lawyer forwarded a document. Amanda had requested to pause the divorce proceedings, claimed she was in an uncertain emotional state, that maybe a legal separation would allow space for clarity. Space for clarity? Translation. Tyler didn't turn out to be the dreamboat she imagined, and now she wanted to keep a foot in the door while she figured out her next move. I told my lawyer to proceed. No delays, no extensions. The only thing I wanted clarity on was when I could finally detach legally and permanently from the wreckage she left behind. That same night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I don't usually answer those, but something told me to pick up. It was Tyler. His voice was calm, but you could hear the strain under it. He asked if we could talk man to man. I nearly hung up, but curiosity got the better of me. All right, I said. Talk. She told me she was staying with you for a bit, just until things cooled down. But then she didn't show. I haven't heard from her in 3 days. I almost laughed. Why are you calling me about that? Because, he said, hesitating. I don't think she's okay. I sat there for a beat. She's not with me, Tyler. She moved out. And I'm not her handler. He exhaled, frustrated. Then he said something that turned the whole conversation sideways. She said she's thinking of moving away, like permanently, selling everything and leaving town. I went quiet. It didn't sound like her. She loved control, loved appearances. Amanda wasn't the vanishing type, she was the performance type. But then again, maybe this was the performance. The last act. One final transformation to distract from the fact that everything she touched had gone sour. I thanked him. Hung up. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of worry. Out of realization. She didn't just ruin our marriage. She was running from herself. From her choices. From the truth that nothing she built on lies could hold. And this time, no new man. No fancy condo. No Pilates class was going to save her from the slow realization that she'd burned every bridge with the only people who ever truly knew her. The house felt lighter the next morning. Still. And for the first time in months, I realized something. This was the sound of peace. Not silence. Peace. I saw her one last time. It wasn't planned. Wasn't dramatic. Wasn't even a real moment, it just happened. A flicker. A cross of paths. I was at the post office, mailing off some final paperwork for the divorce settlement. It had all gone through, clean cut, no appeals, no attempts to stall. She'd signed the last forms 2 weeks earlier. No note. Just her name, looping with that little flourish she always used when she wanted to look composed. I was leaving, envelope in hand, when I saw her stepping out of a cab across the street. She didn't see me. She looked different. Older somehow. Not in the wrinkles or her hair or her walk, just older. Like someone who'd lived too many lives in too short a time. She wasn't with anyone. No bags. No smiles. No phone in hand. Just standing there, staring at a real estate office window. I watched for a second too long. Then she turned. Met my eyes. We both froze. It wasn't tension. Not anymore. It was just history. Heavy. Shared. Broken. Stitched. Frayed. She didn't wave. I didn't nod. We just looked at each other. Two people who had once shared every inch of a life now separated by the width of a street and the weight of 30 years. And then she turned and walked away. That was it. No final speech. No apology. No plea. Just the end. And in that moment I didn't feel pain. Or rage. Or loss. I felt free. I went home. Made coffee. Sat on the back porch and listened to the wind moving through the trees. That same porch where we once carved pumpkins with Adam. Where she used to sit on warm nights and tell me about the books she was reading. Before she stopped reading. Before she stopped talking. Before she became a ghost wearing my wife's face. And I realized something I think every betrayed person eventually learns. The real betrayal wasn't just in her lies. It was in how little she thought I'd matter once she left. She expected me to crumble. To fall apart. Maybe even to chase her. But I rebuilt. I filled the silences with real conversations, with Adam, with friends, with myself. I started running again. Cooking. Saying yes to things I used to push aside. I reconnected with an old friend from college. Just to talk. Just to remember who I was before she rewrote me. And slowly, without realizing it, I came back. A different man, yes, but a stronger one. So here's what I'll say to anyone reading this who's stuck in that first gut punch moment of betrayal. You will survive. It'll feel like death, like failure, like some cruel proof that love is a lie. But that feeling is not the end. It's the beginning. She took 30 years from me, but she didn't take me. And now, finally, I know the difference.